Whisper of the swamp on the outskirts of a small town. There was a dense swamp, shrouded in a perpetual mist that seemed to swallow everything around it. The people in the town told terrifying tales about the place, warning the curious to never venture there after sunset. They said the swamp was ancient, a place where strange and inexplicable things happened. No one knew exactly what hid in the shadows of the murky waters, but the reports spoke of voices whispering and beings that didn't belong to this world. Alyssa, a young woman with a skeptical and rational spirit, never believed these stories. She always preferred logical explanations for the mysteries surrounding the swamp. To her, the tales were just superstitions and fertile imaginations. But when her younger sister, Lily, mysteriously disappeared after being seen entering the swamp, Alyssa knew she couldn't ignore the rumors. With a heart heavy with worry, she decided that she would face that place, no matter the cost, and bring her sister back. It was a cold and muggy night. The mist, thick as a smoke screen, enveloped the swamp, making each step more difficult. Alyssa could barely see a few meters ahead as she trudged through the swamp's muddy, foul-smelling waters. The stench of decay filled the air, and the sound of her footsteps was muffled, as if the very ground were trying to conceal what was happening there. Each breath she took seemed harder, as if the air itself were heavy with something invisible and menacing. "Lily?" she called, trying to keep calm, although her voice trembled with rising anxiety. "Lily, are you there?" The silence was deafening. Nothing responded, neither the wind, nor the animals, nor the rustling of trees. Only the sound of her own heart, beating faster as she ventured deeper into the mist. Alyssa didn't know if her sister was still there, if she was still alive, or if the swamp had claimed her. With every step, the feeling of being watched grew stronger, and fear began to take hold. Suddenly, something caught her eye. Small lights flickered in the distance, blinking like fireflies, but erratically, as if they had a mind of their own. Alyssa frowned. There shouldn't be any lights here. Who could be this deep in the swamp at this time of night? She hesitated for a moment, but the pain of not knowing what happened to Lily was stronger. She decided to follow the lights, like a beacon of hope in the darkness. As she walked toward the lights, the atmosphere around her seemed to shift. The air grew thicker, almost suffocating, and the cold became more intense, making her bones ache. The sound of footsteps behind her made her stop suddenly, her body tense, nerves on edge. She turned quickly, but there was nothing there, just the thick fog swallowing everything. Nothing but the absolute silence. "Lily," she called again, her voice now weaker, filled with desperation. The silence continued, but something in the distance seemed to be moving. A sigh, a distant whisper. She was not alone. Alyssa gripped the lantern tightly, fear rising in her chest with every second. The lights ahead continued to blink, but the closer she got, the more she felt a sense of unease. The lights floated, not like lanterns or candles, but like small, ethereal orbs of light, glowing and fading into the air. Alyssa felt a chill run down her spine. Something was wrong. Then the whispers started, slowly at first, but soon growing louder, surrounding her from all sides. "Alyssa." Her heart stopped for a moment. The voice was unmistakable. It was Lily. But something was different. The voice wasn't of flesh and bone. It seemed to come from the air itself, from the mist that surrounded her. "Lily? Where are you?" Alyssa shouted, no longer knowing who or what she was calling to. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. Come, find me. Alyssa felt panic grip her body. She ran, desperate, trying to follow the voice through the thick fog. But the more she ran, the more the path seemed to change. The trees distorted. The landscape seemed to rearrange itself, as if the swamp itself was trying to confuse her. She didn't know where she was going anymore. Suddenly, a figure appeared before her. It was a tall, dark silhouette, vague and undefined, wrapped in the mist as if it were part of it. Alyssa stopped abruptly, fear coursing through her body. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. "Who's there?" Her voice was a barely audible whisper. The figure didn't respond. It just stood there, motionless, watching her with an ominous presence. Panic took hold of Alyssa. Her instinct told her to run, to escape, but her legs were frozen in place, as if the earth itself were holding her. The whisper returned, this time louder and clearer. "You shouldn't be here." Alyssa looked around, desperate, but the figure didn't move. She was surrounded by the fog and the presence of something she couldn't understand. She knew then that this wasn't Lily. It was something much older, much more malevolent, something that fed on those lost souls. Then despair took over. She had to escape. But how? The swamp was alive. It seemed to move with its own will. The trees bent, the waters churned, and the figure before her showed no sign of letting her go. That's when Alyssa remembered what the elders in town had said about the swamp. Something about how, sometimes, the only way to escape was to deceive the spirits that dwelled there. She remembered the stories of animals that played dead to escape predators. Without thinking, Alyssa dropped to the ground, as if exhausted, completely giving up. She held her breath, imitating what she had seen animals do when they faked being dead. Time seemed to stretch on forever. The figure before her didn't move. The fog around her seemed to dissipate, the air growing lighter. Alyssa didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. She knew her only chance of escape was for the spirit to believe she had given up. And for what felt like an eternity, everything remained still. When Alyssa finally opened her eyes, the spirit's presence had faded. She felt a deep sense of relief, but she knew it wasn't over. Alyssa quickly got up and began to run again, not looking back. The lights flickered in the distance, but she didn't care. Now, she only wanted to leave, to live, to breathe fresh air. She ran until her legs burned, until her chest ached. Finally, she saw the edge of the swamp approaching, and then, as if an invisible door had opened, the mist cleared. The air was fresh, and the soft light of dawn began to break through the darkness. Alyssa fell to her knees, exhausted and relieved, but she knew deep down that the swamp would never leave her in peace.